Hey guys, welcome back to Level 6 Math. It's Mr. C, working with our section math. We're preparing for test number 5, and I found the 5 most confusing problems in test number 5. So we did the pre-test, we found out what students were struggling with the most, and we came up with confusing word problems, ratios, averaging, multiplying fractions, and subtracting fractions from whole numbers. So I got an example of each of these things, and we're just going to walk through it. I'm going to go take you step by step through each of these 5 problems, and hopefully this will help you in preparing for test number 5. So let's start with number 1, confusing word problems. I love these ones because what we're really testing here is, can you convert words into equations? Can you take something that's written in a word form and represent it through numbers? So here we have, what is the product? When I hear product, to me that means multiply, okay? What is the product of the sum means add, of 30 and 10. So sum, well, let's take that first. 30 and 10. 30 plus 10, that's a sum. And we're going to be multiplying that against something else. Plus the difference, that's a subtract. The difference of, oh, I was meant to do this 30 and 10. We're going to change that. 30 and 10. So 30 and 10. There we go. So we've got the sum of 30 and 10, the difference of 30 and 10, and we're going to multiply those two things. So 30 plus 10 is 40. 30 minus 10 is 20. 40 times 20, now we've got a harder equation. 40 times 20. Now remember, when we've got the zeros, we can take those 2 zeros off and just put them at the end. So it's really just going to be 4 times 2 is 8, and then add the 2 zeros. 800 is going to be our answer here. Now I know that's a little bit confusing, but we're just taking this text, we're putting it in number form first, and this would normally be on one row. I'm kind of squished here in my box, but 30 plus 10 times 30 minus 10. Now remember, order of operations matter, so we do what's in our parentheses first. And the reason I put those in parentheses is it asks for this group of stuff, the product of the sum of 30 and 10 and the difference of 30 and 10. So it's those two different things, and then the product will be putting them together. So that's why I know they're in parentheses. So I do one part first, then the other part, put them together. Then I have to, of course, finish the problem by getting the product, which is multiplying. So I take the first parentheses, I get 40, the second parentheses get 20, multiply them together, and get 800. Are these word problems confusing? Yes, they are. Is it a good challenge? Yes, it is. All right, let's go to the second one, ratios. In a class of 26 students, there are 16 boys. What is the ratio of boys to girls in the classroom? Now, this one's a little tricky because it's not asking the ratio of boys to the total number in the classroom. If that was the case, then we would just do 16 out of 26. But we have to figure out how many girls there are first. So let's take our 26 total, subtract our 16 boys, and we get 10 girls. Okay? So now we know how many boys, 16, how many girls, 10. Now if it asks the ratio of boys to girls, that means the boys will be the first number in our ratio. So if we represented our ratio 16 to 10, that's one way to write it. We could also write it 16 colon 10. But the way we've been practicing here, this is from lesson 23. The way we've practiced in lesson 23 is to make it into a fraction. So we do 16, the first number, boys, to 10. Now we see that this is a fraction that can reduce. So the greatest common fraction, or greatest common factor here, let's see, in 16 we've got 2 and 8 is 16 plus 1 and 16. And in 10 we've got 2 and 5 and 1 and 10. It looks like the greatest common factor is 2. So we're going to divide each one by 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And we get a ratio of 8 to 5. So that's our answer, is 8/5, because we did it in fraction form. So make sure you do that. These two are also technically correct, but we're practicing reducing from lesson 23, and that's why this is the best way to do it. All right, so that is ratios. Averaging. Now averaging isn't tricky, but if you're not used to doing it, you're just going to miss it. So you just have to do it the right way. What's the average of 478, 592, and 384? Well, anytime we're going to take an average, we're going to add those numbers together and then divide by the total number of whatever we're adding together. In this case, there's 3 total numbers, so we're going to divide by 3. So first let's set it up by doing 478 plus 592 plus 384. So we want to add those first, and then we'll divide by 3. 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14. We'll carry the 1. 7 plus 1 is 8, plus 9 is 17, plus 8 is 25. Carry the 2. 2 plus 4 is 6, plus 5 is 11, plus 3 is 14. So now we have a number that we can work with, 1454, and we need to divide that by 3. I didn't do this in advance, so there might be a remainder. If there's a remainder, we're just going to move on. 3 goes into 14 4 times, will give us 12. Subtract and we get 2, drop the 5, 25. 3 goes into 25 8 times. 8 times 3 is 24. Drop the 1 or drop the 4. 3 goes into 14 4 times, and sure enough, there is going to be a remainder. 4 times 3 is 12. Now remember, the way we've been doing this with fractions is we'll go ahead and take that remainder. 14 minus 12 is 2. And let's do this as a fraction just to practice. So the numerator will be the remainder, 2, and the denominator will be the divisor, which is 3. So later on this year, we're going to show you how to do this as a decimal. Right now, you'd normally do 484 R2, remainder 2, but we've been practicing doing it in fractions. So it'd be 484 and 2/3 will be our answer, okay? So that is averaging. Next, going on to multiplying fractions. This one's not too tricky. These are actually my favorite problems. I love when it says of, because of is an easy one to remember. It means multiply. So we're just going to multiply 4/5 times 20. Remember, if we're multiplying fractions, let's go ahead and change the second one to a fraction. Of course, any whole number, if we want to change it into a fraction, we just put a 1 underneath. So we're going to rewrite this as 4/5 times 20 over 1. Now remember, when we're adding fractions, we want to have common denominators. But when we're multiplying fractions, it doesn't matter what the denominators are. We're just going to multiply numerators against numerators and denominators against denominators. So here we're just doing 4 times 20 is 80. 5 times 1 is 5. And so now we have a fraction of 80/5. To reduce that, we can find the greatest common factor, which is 5. But it's going to take me a while to think, what is 80 divided by 5. So I'm just going to do this as a division problem. Remember, anytime you have a fraction, the top number goes in the box if you're going to divide. So we'll put 80 in the box, divide it by 5. 5 goes into 8 one time. We get 5, subtract and we get 3, drop the 0. 5 goes into 36 times. So our answer here is going to be 16. So 4/5 of 20 is 16. That's one way to do it. There's actually several ways. We didn't do any cross multiplying. We didn't do other ways. We could just do 5 times 20 divided by 4. So there's a bunch of different ways we can solve this problem. That's just one of the ways. Let's move on to our last one, subtracting fractions from whole numbers. This one surprised me. I didn't think anyone would miss this, but we actually had several students who missed this. And again, if you're working with fractions and one number is a whole number, just change it to a fraction. So here, the 1, we wouldn't change it to 1 over 1 because the denominator here is 8. And when we're adding or subtracting, we want the same denominators. So we want to change that 1 to 8 over 8. 8 over 8, of course, equals 1. So we can do that one. Then we just subtract 5 over 8. And this is the easiest problem ever. 8 minus 5 is 3. Keep the denominator the same. There's nothing to reduce or simplify here. It's 3/8. So that's a pretty easy one. But I guess it takes some practice because we had a bunch miss it. So these are our 5 trickiest problems from unit number 5. Hopefully this review session was helpful for you. If it was, go ahead and put something in the comments. I want to know if this is working for you or if you want me to switch this up in some kind of way. All right, good luck on your test. Bye.